The a6500 is an amazing APS-C camera for both vlogging and professional uses. So let's take a look at how you can optimize the camera. So what this is I've got 5 pro tips for a6500 users. The first tip I have is customizing your button layout. This is really important as I never like to go into the menus when I'm on a shoot or even when I'm vlogging. So here's my custom setup. Sony's completely redesigned their menu system. The custom button heading is going to be under subheading 8 under the movie heading. And the way I have it set up, I have my custom button 1, which is on the top, set to movie, which is your record button. The record button's in an awkward spot, so I like to have it up here so I can get to it easily. Custom 2, I have set to autofocus, manual focus toggle. This could also serve as a focus hold. It can also serve for you to make micro adjustments, whatever you need. Custom 3, I have set to clear image zoom, but more on that later. The center button is for my focus standard, so I have my focus set up to flexible spot large, so I can press the center button and use the joystick to quickly change my focus spot. My left button is white balance, in case I need to dial that in. My right button is ISO. I want that to be easily accessible. My down button changes my audio recording level, which I use a lot. Now I have my AEL button set to toggle center lock-on autofocus. I usually leave this on. This allows me to touch the screen and the camera will lock on to whatever object. You'll see these white bars come around the screen and it'll try and lock onto that object, how it moves across the frame. The AF/MF button is standard. I have that to hold manual focus. You can use that to hold focus. You could also use it simply just to check your focus with focus peaking. So that's my custom setup. My next tip is the same kind of theme. It's setting up your function menu with items that you may not use quite as much. Here is my function menu setup. So you can find the function menu set just under the custom button setup. This is important. These need to be settings that you use less than the custom buttons but are still important. Remember, the goal is to never have to dive into your menus. I have them set up as drive mode, focus area, audio record level, shoot mode, metering mode, picture profile, gamma display. What gamma display does is it adds saturation and contrast if you're shooting log, white balance, creative style, zebra, and steady shot focal length. If you're using certain lenses that don't give electronic control to the camera, you'll need to manually set steady shot focal length. So it's very important to have this setting accessible. You don't want to be shooting with, say, my Rokinon 85mm manual lens and not get the in-body image stabilization. So that's my function menu setup. So between your custom buttons and your function menu, you should never have to dig into the menus during your shoots. So moving on to some of the more pro tips, the first one is clear image zoom. It allows you to sample a smaller part of the sensor. The Sony a6500 has a 24 megapixel sensor and 4K only takes up about 8 megapixels. So you have a lot of latitude to crop in without really losing much image quality. This can be really, really useful, especially when you have like a 24-70. The APS-C equivalent is 35-105. So that effectively becomes a 35-210, which can be so useful if you're shooting an event when you just need to run and gun and not change lenses. My next tip relates to picture profiles. So something Sony users do a lot is compare picture profiles. There's everything from S-Log3, S-Log2, Cine 4, Rec 709, to custom picture profiles like EOS HD, Ominio primers. I've used just about all of them, and I've bounced between using just no picture profile to the one I use right now, the matte flat Cine 4. Let me show you how to set that up. So moving on, we have our picture profile. And again, all the credit for this picture profile goes to who is Matt Johnson. It is the matte flat picture profile. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna open up your picture profile menu. You are going to scroll all the way down to PP8. And the only thing you have to change is the gamma. Now, default, the gamma is going to be set to S-Log 3. You're just going to go in and change that to Cine 4. And this allows you to use Sony's color space here. I've used EOS Pro. I've used Ominio primers. I think the easiest thing to do is just to use this color space. It does a pretty good job with skin tones. Sony's gotten a lot better. It's obviously not as good off camera as Canon. This is going to give you an image that needs some grading. In fact, here's a test I shot on campus using this picture profile just the other day. So finally, this last tip is something that I don't think a lot of people use. I always shoot in 4K at 24 frames per second. This camera has the ability to shoot 1080 at 120 frames, but I never like to lose the 4K image. It gives you some latitude to punch in. It's cleaner. I just really prefer it. But the problem is, a lot of the time I want to slow the action down a little bit. 120 frames per second is almost jarring with how slow it is. So what I like to do is, in Premiere, there's a feature called optical flow. Let me show you how to use it. So this last tip involves editing in Adobe Premiere. We've got this 5-second clip of Kristen walking through a museum. And let's just say we want to slow that down because it's handheld and maybe it's a little shaky. Normally you wouldn't have that option shooting 4K 24. You'd have to shoot at 1080, 120, which takes away some of the latitude to do things like punch in. So what I like to do is use optical flow. So to do this, you're going to go to speed duration, and let's just slow it down 50%. I find that usually looks pretty smooth. Now what you'll find with optical flow is that it is literally creating new frames. So first you're gonna have to render it, and it's not perfect. This is actually more of a tricky frame because there are multiple subjects in the frame. That's why I chose this one, because it shows you the good and the bad of it. So let's take a look at what it looks like now, slowed down. So that's kind of it. Those are 5 pro tips or hacks for your Sony a6500. I hope it helped you out, and thanks for watching.